The final game of the 2019 USA Ultimate regular season. The Women's Championship at the USA Ultimate Pro Championships here in Port Washington, Pennsylvania. Denver Molly Brown, San Francisco Fury looking to make one final statement for the regular season before we head into the series in the fall. Molly Brown, a Universe Point survival against Toronto Sixers in the semifinals. This tournament's been full of surprises, but no surprise to see Fury and Riot battling. With a lot on the line, Fury survived and advanced 14-12 in a very exciting game yesterday in the semifinals. And now this championship match featuring two teams that have had up and down seasons. Megan, the women's division feels as wide open as ever.
And that's saying something huge, just because for so long we feel like we've known exactly who we were going to see in the finals at Nationals. And this year, playing field is a little more open. You know, I wasn't so certain that we would see Fury and Molly Brown in the finals today. But Fury was the team that was just cleaner and pulled it together a little bit faster, and Molly was able to do what they do so well, grit it out to the end.
Notably absent from the semis, Boston Brute squad, who won the U.S. Open a month ago. For Denver Molly Brown, they've had quite a weekend. They took down a fatigued Riot squad in pool play and have been kind of their inconsistent selves, but their good is really good. And Alika Johnston, now a captain in her second year on a team, the former Callahan winner, has given a new dimension to their offense.
One thing that I've always admired about Molly Brown is how they work to develop their youth, but that has meant that there have been players who have had to shoulder a large responsibility. Alika Johnston has relieved some of those players of their responsibility with her ability to keep the disc moving. She's a smart, aggressive player, and she uses that to her advantage, and the team is all too happy to have her talent on board.
So much talk about Claire Chastain when you discuss Molly Brown, but Johnston's presence has been huge. Fury is no stranger to a moment like this, despite the fact that they failed to make the semifinals of the U.S. Open. They are the two-time defending national champion. They won 11 titles since 1999, and they've got 6 players who have represented the United States in the World Games, the most prestigious international event for Ultimate. One of them is Carolyn Finney, who is playing her best Ultimate of her career this year.
And that's saying so much, because she's been such a dynamic player for so long. Her field intelligence is so high, and she uses that to her advantage on both sides of the disc. You can watch her hunt the disc when she is on defense, and then offensively she's thinking 2-3 throws ahead, which is how she sets up her cuts and looks down the field to decide where she's going to move it next.
Well, Maddie Sang and Fury have been in this spot so many times, they try to add another notch to their title case. This might be the biggest Molly Brown win in their history if they can get it done. Denver and San Francisco coming up. USA Ultimate Pro Championships are presented by the Ultimate History Book, illuminating the legendary stories, moments, and photos from the sport of Ultimate over the past 50 years. Learn more at ultimatehistrybook.com. And by Discraft, home of the UltraStar, the official disc of USA Ultimate, now featuring an updated website to make ordering custom discs easier than ever. Visit Discraft.com for all your custom disc needs. San Francisco Fury won the toss and chose to receive. Manuela Cardenas, the superstar from Colombia, launches the opening pull, and we are underway. The final at the USA Ultimate Pro Championships, formerly known as the Pro Flight Finale. And some contact downfield as Jesse O'Connor sought Cree Howard, but there's no call. Howard colliding with Lisa Picaithley. And a quick turnover for Fury gives Molly Brown the disc. 35 yards from the end zone. Beg your pardon, just 30 yards away. Quickly to Chip Chang, to Cardenas, and her throw out of the reach of the bidding Paige Applegate. Interesting to see Applegate start this game on defense. She's played a ton of offense for Molly Brown. Joe Durst has been eager to have his team change roles as Maggie Rudin goes flying, makes the catch airborne with one hand, 5 yards shy of the end zone. Reset for Howard. And to the end zone, it's Bethany Kaler. Fury holds and takes a 1-0 lead. Couple of turnovers on this point, but I gotta say, is it just me or does Maggie Rudin make a catch like this every time we broadcast a Fury game?
It's like they set her up for it, knowing that she's going to do it. What a grab to save possession for Fury, eliminating Molly Brown's hopes for a very early break in this game.
And Beth Kaler has been a very impactful contributor. She's impressed me as much as anyone in the women's division this weekend. She carries herself like she thinks she's one of the best players in the world. And she's kind of always carried herself that way. She's learned how to avoid some of the mistakes that prevented her from being in that conversation. More and more, she's rising into that conversation among the game's elite.
And that says a lot on a squad like Fury that has, as we've highlighted, so many world's players on it. There are lots of players that can very easily grab your attention, that the efforts like someone like Bethany Kaler puts out can be easily overlooked, when on any other team she would just be an absolute superstar.
Kaler, of course, played at the University of Oregon. Remember that final where Oregon lost a tight game to Ohio State? Kaler was injured. The Oregon Feud women's team is playing without her in her hometown of Cincinnati. Molly Brown's first offensive opportunity. Alika Johnston downfield for Chelsea Tuig. Beg your pardon, that's Melissa Devlin. Throw a little bit behind Liza Minor, but a nice adjustment. And downfield, Stephanie Pritchard. Finally a touch for Chastain. Chastain and Payne, a couple of World Games teammates guarding one another. And of course, they were former teammates on Denver Molly Brown. Chastain to the end zone, bobbled and out of bounds. Sarah Taggart might have been in if she had caught it initially, but the observer called her out, and Molly Brown gives it away. Nazaroff downfield. Lakshmi Narayan throws it away. A pick downfield, halts play. Kind of casually mentioned what this game could mean to Molly Brown. They've won a couple of tournaments. They won the West Coast equivalent of the Pro Championships that some of the top West Coast women's teams competed in last year. They won a Colorado Cup. But to win a marquee event like this over Fury, having beaten Riot, would be a monumental moment. You know, even though, as everybody acknowledges, it's not as important as Nationals, this game means more today for Molly Brown than it does for Fury.
That's true, and as you mentioned, this isn't Nationals, but these bigger legs of the Triple Crown Tour are important for establishing confidence that on a big stage, teams can pull it together against top-level talent and perform the entire length of the game. Molly Brown is known for being a little bit streaky. Their emotions can rise appropriately and fall inappropriately. It would just go to show that they have put together a program that can last the duration of the game.
No question, Taggart in the end zone there catches the short disc from Claire Chastain, and Molly Brown has the early equalizer. It's one apiece. Head coach Joe Durst leading this Molly Brown program again. They have a bunch of new pieces. Some of their new pieces are filling in some key departures, and they've also had some returners who are taking on new roles. For more on that, we bring in the third member of our broadcast team, Ian Toner.
Thanks a lot, Evan. That's right. One of those established players on the Molly Brown squad, filling new shoes, Lisa Pitt-Catley. For years, she's been known as a downfield cutting force, instrumental in Polar Bears' 2010 mixed championship. She graced the cutting lanes for Fury after that, and she's been such a huge cutter for the Molly Brown offense in 3 of their 4 trips to the semifinals these last few years. But this year, she's quarterbacking the D-line offense, playing more defense than she ever has before, assuming more defensive responsibility. She says she's really enjoying focusing on the new goals and understanding how to solve the defensive challenges that other offenses pose. Evan, back up to you.
Ian, good stuff. And look out, it's almost like they were trying to hit you with that roller pull. It was about 5 yards away.
Saw Keithley, Paige Applegate also on D. Another shift from Coach Joe Durst.
Finney's deep shot easily dispatched by Paige Applegate, as you mentioned. Not sure what Carolyn Finney saw there.
Not sure either. But the reason that Paige has been shifted over to defense, Joe thinks that it'll give her a little more creativity and space to open up as a handler, because on offense, you know, there's the disc is sacred. You're not allowed to turn it over. On defense, because the primary objective is to first get the disc, feels it gives her the space necessary to bring out the full depth of her talents.
With Applegate and Keithley, along with Cardenas, this D-line for Molly Brown has maybe more firepower than it's ever had. Although that deep shot intended for Liz Normer had no shot. Meady Chang initiates. Jesse O'Connor, one of the new members of this Fury squad, formerly played with Scandal. Tough grab by Claire Desmond, middle of the field. And O'Connor, who's been something of a complimentary handler in her time with Scandal, alongside Jenny Fay or Kath Radcliffe. Maddie Sang, the Fury coach, has said, we want her to huck it, we want her to take command, and she does just that, sending it deep to Claire Desmond for the Fury score. The leadership that Jesse O'Connor has brought, another dynamic that Maddie mentioned as being real important, because this is a Fury team that's trying to deal with the loss of their longtime offensive anchor, Alex Snyder.
Right, Snyder was so instrumental in just being that central figure around the Fury offense who could get the disc to the end zone and do exactly what was necessary to finalize or punctuate a point. With her departure, it remained unclear who was going to step up and fill that role. Maddie has really been pushing O'Connor to that challenge. Says he's really pleased with how she's continuing to grow just through the course of this season. Fury is one of the programs I find most interesting with the way they can change and develop over the course of a season. So we're sure to see just the tip of the iceberg of O'Connor's talent this year.
O'Connor out of the University of Maryland, 27 years old. San Francisco Fury defeated Brute Squad in a close game. And their next close game was Riot in the semifinals. Fury went up 3-0 in that semifinal, then fell behind. Riot came all the way back, and then Fury was stronger down the stretch. Alika Johnston. Her continued growth on offense has given Joe Durst and Molly Brown the freedom to move Applegate over to D. Chastain chased by Sarah Griffith. They both tumble downward, shoulder to shoulder. Johnston marked by Nazaroff. And looking downfield, the throw was off the mark, intended for Ni Win. Intercepted by Bree Khan, who turns it over in kind. So far, each team has turned it once on each of the game's first 4 points. Johnston's errant throw, followed by Khan's toss that was behind Griffith. Back to live action. Not much space to squeeze that throw through, but hung on to. Melissa Devlin, back in her hometown. She grew up in Philly. One of the handful of AMP players who are on this Molly Brown roster. Chastain looking for Ni Win near the sideline. And she was unable to keep that in bounds. It was Ni for the win in the semifinals yesterday. High stall count hammer from Paige Applegate won it. And the deep shot from Nazaroff into a pack of players lands incomplete. So now 2 turnovers aside on this point. Molly Brown looking for the offensive hold to tie the game up at 2. Here's Ni Win. Chastain unable to make the grab, adjusting behind her. Quickly picking it up, and it's Griffith skying in the end zone for the score. The former Riot standout who joined Fury mid-season last year after winning a world title with Riot, won a world title with Seattle, won a national title with San Francisco. One of the superstars in the sport gives Fury the 3-1 lead in their first break of the game.
Molly Brown's going to have to dial in those unforced offensive errors that have proved costly this early in the game. It seems like there's some miscommunication about what direction cuts are going. Players are throwing to the opposite side where those cuts are ending up, giving Fury an easy opportunity to attack the end zone.
3-1 Fury leads, timeout called by Molly Brown, and we send it down to Ian.
Thanks, Evan. There's an interesting difference in the way these teams handle substitutions and line calling. Molly Brown sticks with a more traditional O-line, D-line split. And Fury, on the other hand, likes to call groups of handler pods and cutter pods to play together. However, Coach Maddie Sang of Fury did say with us yesterday that yesterday's semifinal against Riot was one of the first times they've deviated from that plan and specifically called out specific assignments to match up against opponents. So we'll be interested to keep an eye on just how specifically and tightly Fury keeps its subbing throughout the rest of this game.
Throughout the season so far, Fury has been pretty free in terms of having open lines. And that's one of the reasons why they haven't been overly concerned by some of the results. But their depth is pretty impressive. Kirsten Johnson got some ice on the elbow there. We hope Kirsten Johnson's okay, former member of Molly Brown. Johnson and Payne and McKeever, current members of Fury that have played for Molly Brown in the past. Lisa Picaithley, the only current member of Molly Brown who has been on Fury in the past. And as we were watching Sarah Griffith celebrate, I don't know about you, Meagles, it still feels strange to me to see her in a Fury jersey.
Oh my gosh, it's still, for me as well.
She was such a stalwart for the Seattle Riot program for so long before moving down to the Bay Area. Another execution error in the handler set. Applegate unable to connect with Taggart. Here's Kayla Helton. Back to Carolyn Finney. This is McKeever. Diana Charrier. Helton to the end zone. Lakshmi Narayan is there. Fantastic start for Fury. That's 3 in a row, including back-to-back breaks.
And just another miscommunication error between 2 Molly Brown players. And Fury quick to capitalize. A successful red zone possession. Earlier in the tournament, there was an offensive possession where Fury just marched down the field, scoring easily. And Maddie jokingly said to his team, this is why we don't run end zone, or this is why we run plays like this, so we don't have to run end zone. His team had went 9-11 earlier in the tournament in red zone attempts. His team said, isn't that great? And he said, no, that's terrible. Maddie Sang expects a little more perfection in the red zone.
It's been another solid start. And this is kind of a glimpse of the Molly Brown team that we're used to. Now, they absolutely can overcome this deficit. we've seen them win second halves big. We've seen them win first halves big. In the semifinals, yesterday morning against Scandal, they had an 8-4 lead. Becomes universe point. How many times have we seen Molly Brown either take a big lead and then let the other team come back, or they fall down early and then come back? They're still looking to put two halves together against one of the top teams. Which, again, easier said than done when you're going against 6 World Games players and Bethany Kaler and Maggie Rudin and all the other firepower that this Fury team has assembled.
Sure, but you're right to mention it. That is the missing piece of the Molly Brown program. They have been consistently extremely good, but have failed to execute in those final games.
Johnston to Manuela Cardenas. Manuela was playing with Columbia Revolution, the U.S. Open. For the first time this weekend at the USA U Pro Championships, Manuela got to play against her sister Valeria, who's joined Seattle Riot. Manuela won the first battle when they competed on Friday morning. They did match up a couple times in that game. There was one point in particular when they really went after each other, but for the most part it was the team versus the team. Manuela has the early bragging rights in the head-to-head rivalry. Twin sisters who are just 19 years old. What a catch in the end zone there, snagged by Applegate. Good solid offensive point, best of the game so far for Molly Brown.
Assist by number 33, Bert Abbott. Goal by number 7, Paige Applegate.
And this just more evidence for your point, Evan, that Molly Brown is an incredibly talented team that has what it takes to compete toe-to-toe with a team like Fury. But it's the ability to every single point go out and get the team to function as they did this possession, maintaining the space, staying ahead of the defense, communicating cuts appropriately.
Applegate catches the score, and Bert Abbott, former Seattle mixtape national champion. Remember, Bert caught the game-winning goal in that classic against Philly Amp a couple years ago. That was in Florida, I believe. Just outside of Sarasota. Look at Jessie Schaffner. Wish we saw her on the field. She's been cleaning up, trying to prove that she's ready to go. She says when she tries to run the full 70-yard zone in a sprint, she feels that hamstring get a little tight. So they're playing the cautious game with Jessie Schaffner. Certainly one of the unique superstars in the sport. Trapping on the sideline, Pitcaithley sets the mark, and Finney immediately gets it off the sideline. Maggie Rudin, guarded by the bouncing Rachel Wilmoth, up the line for O'Connor. To Finney. Another good swing from Finney, and she beats Pitcaithley up the line. Lisa fell asleep there for just a moment, but that was long enough for Finney to find the space and score the goal. 5-2 San Francisco.
So that trap mark from Molly Brown has become somewhat of a lethal defensive look that they have. But you noticed how quickly Fury was ready to respond. I'm sure that they have practiced specifically for that. When that disc rolled out of bounds, Finney ran up to it, undoubtedly assessing the cup, finding that weak spot. She attacked it immediately and set that offense in motion.
That's a heck of a point for Finney. Starting it on one sideline, getting it off the sideline. Then she cut the disc on the other sideline, immediately got the swing through the traffic, and then catches the goal by a little throw and go. Vision with Kaler, they were on the same page exactly.
Yeah, she clearly understands the speed that is necessary to overcome the potentially devastating effect that sideline trap has.
Carolyn Finney comes from a basketball background. Told this story before, but she never played Ultimate before college. She was at UC Santa Barbara, and She learned that there was going to be free pizza at the information meeting, so she went for the pizza and stayed for the ultimate. Members of Philly Amp enjoying their large inflatable flamingo, despite the loss in the mixed final to Dragon Thrust. I wouldn't mind a picture with the big pink flamingo later today.
I'm sure they will let you hop on in.
I want you in the picture too.
All right, fine.
Here's Chastain, guarded by Helton. And that one fumbled away by Liza Minor, an uncharacteristic mistake from the typically sure-handed cutter. Nancy Sun, wide yard sacrificing reset for Helton, and now Kaler. Very rare for Bethany Kaler to be on the field and to not make an impact on that particular point. And again, Kaler lays out to keep it alive and then rifles a flick to the end zone, finding Helton. 6-2 Fury. Fury's third break of the game. This one, an unforced error for Molly Brown.
Great grab from Kaler to keep the disc alive and then popping up, finding that nice break throw to Helton.
Helton, one of the veterans of this Fury team. They've got 4 players who have been on the squad at least a decade now. Nancy Sun, 12 years, Helton, 10 years. They were both on the field that last point. Howard and Orion, 12 and 11 years respectively. Bethany Kaler played with the Portland Schwa team after graduating from the University of Oregon. And now in her third year on Fury, and she has taken big strides in 2019. Ronnie Eder. Tell you, Eder played some phenomenal defense yesterday in the Sixers game, often guarding Lauren Kimura, their superstar. Got great speed, which she uses to get free for another undercut, picked up by Marika Austin. There's Minor. And you can sense the Molly Brown player double shifting. Chastain got beat by Helton last point for the score. Back out there on offense, and Eder unable to make the catch. The throw was there, maybe just a smidge too far out of the arms of Applegate, looking for Eder in the end zone.
I think Eder has been the most impressive pickup for Molly Brown this year. She is able to finish points in a way that I think Molly Brown really needed. You watch her time her cuts on the field. It's pretty lethal.
Uncharacteristic mistake from Fury on the restart and gives Molly Brown a wide open look to the end zone. Just like that, it's 6-3. Check this out. Anna Reed directing traffic, and clearly miscommunication because it looked like it was intended for Minor, who quickly flips it to Johnston for the easiest goal she'll have all weekend. Anna Reed was stranded there. And you think about Fury through the years and their ability to be the best team in terms of resetting the disc. Big part of that was Alex Snyder. And her presence and throws and her size and quickness to make the catches and her leadership. There's been a void that Fury's been trying to deal with this year, and they're certainly still in the mix to win their third straight national title, but it has been an adjustment without Snyder as we look at Molly Brown's road to the championship game. They beat Riot. Joe Durst, the head coach, said they were really trying to create a game plan around the fact that Riot was playing its third consecutive game and they were coming off a bye, so they were the more rested team. Joe Durst acknowledges that it'd probably be a much closer game if the rest was equal heading into that one. And it looked like Molly Brown might have to face Scandal twice yesterday. They beat him by 1 in the morning, and then Scandal had a pre-semifinal against the Toronto Sixers team that went down to the wire. What were your impressions of the Sixers?
So impressed. So impressed. They run their game at breakneck speed all the time. You cannot be caught flat-footed against the Sixers.
Here's Rudin launching for Howard. She had 5 yards on Lisa P, and Cree Howard has her easy Fury score.
Playing against Fury for a number of years, I have to say this element of the game is probably the most demoralizing aspect of the game. Just how they can score so easily in 3 to 4 passes. And look at how much of the field they were able to use in just 3 throws.
Maggie Rudin makes that forehand look easy. Angled perfectly for Howard, who had certainly plenty of steps on Pitt Capely, the defender. So the score now 7-3 after the turnover-free hold, and Fury takes a timeout, realizing that they have a chance to break and take it to half here. An impressive first half performance overall from the San Francisco squad. And for Denver, Molly Brown, you know, they've had opportunities in these big moments against the top teams. Top teams being Fury and Brute Squad and Riot. Certainly Scandal won a couple of titles and was in the mix earlier this decade. Molly Brown continues to be competitive with these top teams and get some wins against them, but they haven't gotten a win against them in the most important game. They never have. Kayla Helton getting ready to pull. Another UC Santa Barbara product. Maddie Sang has never really delineated offensive and defensive players. He's also, more than any other coach, enjoyed having his players play 2 points in a row. Whether it's an O or D point or not, and whether they scored or didn't. He just likes to let his players get into a rhythm. Chatted with that strategy a couple years ago with Maddie, and he feels it allows his players to feel more integrated into the game. And they have such incredible depth. I told him after the game against Riot yesterday, I was a little disappointed they scored because I was curious what their universe point line against Riot in the semifinals would have looked like. And he didn't seem too stressed out about that decision, believe it or not. Good mark set by O'Connor, forcing Applegate to reset for Johnston. Eder, tough throw near the sideline, out of the reach for Chastain. Coming right at you. Not sure if Claire was a little perturbed by the presence of the cameraman, but I mean, the cameraman's a good 10 feet off the field, and Claire not pleased with the presence of the technology so close to the playing surface. Nancy Sun dishes it to Marissa Mead. Near the other sideline and out of the reach of Jessie O'Connor. Applegate to Johnston. Up the line, Pelletier. And through Chastain's grasp on the doorstep of the end zone. Mead marked by Pitt K-Foot. Applegate's on O'Connor. Here's Helton. to Sun. Deep shot launched. Yelena Gorlin is there. Gorlin, one of the elder members of the Fury team, 35 years old, finishes the half, hauling in the gorgeous huck from Nancy Sun. Nancy Sun 36, Gorlin 35. The two oldest members of the team both can play.
A number of players on Fury have said they look up to Nancy Sun for her abilities with the Frisbee. And that throw, a shining example of what Sun can do.
4 breaks in the first half for San Francisco Fury. Imagine Matty Sang's feeling pretty good. He's standing by with Ian.
Thanks, Evan. Coach, you got a 5-goal lead here at halftime. What were you most impressed with in that first half?
Nancy's throw. Honestly, like, I'm actually hoping for more. Like, I actually want us to have more consistent defensive pressure. So I think we had decent pressure, but we're getting a lot of turnovers on their mistakes. And so I'm actually looking for more. But Nancy's aggressiveness on that throw was impressive.
What's going to be the message to the team going into the second half?
Offensively, to continue being aggressive, and then we got to ramp up our defense.
What have you learned about Fury 2019 at this tournament?
Collectively, I always knew that we were good, but I feel like we're finding our way and our identity this tournament.
Is there anything in particular you feel like this team really needs to work on between now and Nationals in October?
Defense.
Thanks a lot for your time, Coach. Good luck in the second half. Evan and Megan, back up to you.
Yeah, it's scary for the rest of the field. They're just starting to find their identity, and they are 7 goals away from another championship. 8-3, Fury leads Molly Brown. Disappointing first half for Denver. San Francisco's in control here in Philly. A dominant first half, I'd say, for San Francisco Fury. They received to start, turned it over once on their opening possession, but got it back, punched it in. We were tied 1-1, and then a break made it 3-1, and then a break made it 4-1. Fury would break 2 more times to make it an 8-3 halftime lead. Matty Sang has been encouraging his team to launch the deep ball, and they've obliged and made some really spectacular plays.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch them stretch their offense, making it even more difficult for Molly Brown to cover the ground appropriately. Infield, they've been working well together, timing those long throws at just the right moment when the receiver is in the appropriate space. Matty Sang said it best, the mistakes from Molly Brown have what's cost them the opportunities in this game, and we've watched Fury time and time again seize control after the turnover, just come up with plays that make it look too easy.
When you go against Fury, you feel their defensive pressure. You also feel their legacy pressure. And you know going into it that if you make mistakes, they'll punish them, and that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah, they have the most winning program in the women's division, 11 national titles. You recognize that there is clearly something about this program that continuously functions incredibly well for them to come out with that kind of history.
The big question, how will Molly Brown respond? Ian Toner with Joe Durst.
How do you instill more confidence in your offense going into the second half?
Well, let me begin by instilling confidence in y'all. I'd like to wish Evan's 1-year-old baby laddie a happy birthday and every continued success to Megan's kids as well.
Was there anything notable from the halftime discussion that inspired confidence in the rest of your group?
Yeah, you know, I mean, like resiliency is a pretty key word for us. It's been a killer weekend. We had a great U.S. Open, but lost a couple of the close games. Pro Flight, we got in a lot of dogfights and pulled out those dogfights. So it's been a great weekend of growth. We don't want anything to change in the second half based on some score on a board.
What's the most important thing your team can work on between now and the national championships in October?
Smiling, dancing, and catching the Frisbee.
And how about decorating their faces with glitter?
We're going to get better. I know it's kind of Ziggy Stardust right now. We're going to work all the way up to some, like Cher in the 80s.
Admirable goal. Coach, thank you very much for your time. Good luck in the second half.
Appreciate it.
Evan and Megan, back up to you.
In my opinion, no one rocks the sparkling glitter better than Coach Joe Durst. And he talked about smiling and dancing. They got Manuela Cardenas. She's someone to help the dance moves. Their Australian import has added some dance moves as well. We'll see if that can get Molly Brown back in the second half. Opie Payne ready to pull to begin the second half for San Francisco Fury as they lead 8-3. That puck to end the half from Nancy's son to Elena Gorlin. Those two have been playing together since they were college teammates at MIT more than a decade ago. Molly Brown on offense to start the second half. Applegate picked up by Kahn. Nazaroff's on Johnston. The swing goes to Megan Ives. Before the break, mentioned the Australian import. With Rena Kawabata sadly going down with an ACL injury, Molly Brown added Sophie Taylor to the roster. Taylor with experience playing with Ellipsis out of Melbourne, Australia. Went to the University of Queensland. She's in the Rocky Mountain area for a year doing med school stuff. I asked Joe what the different impacts of the international presence is with Cardenas and Taylor. He said different styles of dance moves get integrated into the system.
The most important piece.
There's Manuela. Downfield for Applegate. Up the line. Floated nicely. Tracked down by Abbott. Well, push pass reset. Cheeky, but I like it. And there's Applegate connecting with a tumbling Lisa Pitcaithly. And a good turnover-free hold, exactly what Molly Brown needed to start the second half. But hold on, because there was a call. And now it has been rescinded, and Molly Brown can celebrate. 8-4.
Another possession from Molly Brown that shows how adeptly they can work together. Nice throw from Applegate. Abbott does a great job of milking it for yards, gets it right outside the end zone, and then what a break throw from Applegate to Pitcaithly.
First goal for Pitcaithly. Third-year member of Molly Brown. Denver Molly Brown dealing with a handful of injuries. There's Rena Kawabata, who had a heck of a World Championships last year for Seattle BFG, then left the team before the series. Much was made of her arrival with Denver Molly Brown this season, and unfortunately, she had surgery for her torn ACL last week. She's one of the leaders of the glitter party, it seems like. Although, to be fair, the glitter and sparkles originates from the University of Colorado College players that are on this Molly Brown team. I think it is they're the kind of the source of producing the glitter. And it's funny how everyone who's had any affiliation with Molly Brown, like in their life, ends up getting glitter on their face. Like I saw Dina Slattery, who was a former Molly Brown player now playing with Love Tractor. She had glitter on her face.
Apparently it comes in a little jar, and they just dip their fingers in and smear it. So I think it's very easy to grace upon your teammates and former teammates as you go along.
Finney shooting it to the end zone, and Kaler shook free of Eder with ease. The Finney-Kaler connection has been crucial for Fury looking as dominant as they have.
I can't wait to get another look at that throw. Finney puts so much touch and finesse and loft on it that Kaler had the opportunity to adjust. She was running a different direction, realized it went up, and changed the course of her cut, and was still able to run it down with time and catch with ease.
Sometimes we use the phrase, she threw her open. This is Finney throwing Kaler open. Sense the space, perfect touch, and that's trust, right? I mean, the concept of trust is thrown around a lot, and people say we need to trust each other more. Carolyn Finney trusted that Bethany Kaler would recognize. And to be perfectly honest, trust is a quality that I think Molly Brown still needs to work on. A lot of it is the new players. We saw it in critical moments yesterday. There would be tight windows to throw, and I did not see the trust that we see from Fury.
Sure. I do also want to point out that Finney noticed there was no defender within a very large margin of the end zone, so she knew she had a ton of space to work with. But I do agree with your point quite a bit, and I think that will come with time. You know, we think about the Molly Brown program. It started just in 2010. Came when the two dominant women's teams in Colorado decided to join forces. Something as when I played on Nemesis, I always thought if these two teams came together, they would be really strong.
Deep shot from Chastain, tracked down by Minor. It's an interesting pull play with everybody from Molly Brown racing to the opposite side of the field and kind of leaving Chastain open. And she had a wide open huck to the deep space. Now that it's back in Chastain's grasp, she'll reset for Johnston. Couple Callahan winners playing catch. Chastain won it, UNC Wilmington. Johnston at the University of Virginia. And that will be caught by Melissa Devlin for Molly Brown's 5th goal of the game.
Chastain left a very big imprint on that particular possession, working hard at the front of the end zone until the appropriate throw opened up. To kind of finish the point we were talking about earlier, Evan, and Molly Brown and the trust necessary. You know, I said this program started in 2010. I feel like they have the right mindset for the long term. As good as Keithley is, Applegate is, Chastain is, they work so hard on ensuring every member of the team feels like a valued asset to the team and should step up and do the appropriate thing. So they're never relying on their superstars, even though their superstars can step in and do what is necessary. And that kind of culture of trust and belief in one another will pay off as they continue to develop their younger players.
Well, as you can see, the skies have opened up. Ian Toner, how's it feel down there?
Tell you what, the skies have opened up, but frankly, it just feels like it's drizzling as we speak, and the wind has definitely calmed down significantly.
No thunder or lightning yet. Hopefully all that stays away and we can conclude this game. Finney launching, looking for Megan Liu, and she read it well. Landing just shy of the goal line, takes the reset for Cree Howard. And Serge Griffith just uses her phenomenal speed, unparalleled in the sport, to race around Manuela Cardenas to the cut to the open side for the Fury score. On that point, we saw Carolyn Finney's huck and Serge Griffith's ridiculous quickness and speed.
Yep, the Fury offense undeterred by the rain. You know, my very first year on Nemesis, we did a marking drill, and I went up against a woman on the team who was 44 years old, and she burned me 80% of the time because she was so much smarter at cutting than I was. This Griffith-Cardenas matchup is really fun. As athletic as Manuela is, Griffith has been playing for longer and is a very intelligent player.
No question about it. The angle of the cut set it up well. Howard picks up the assist. And a nice read and grab by the 5'4" Megan Liu on that Finney deep shot to put Fury on the doorstep. Moving some materials underneath the tent. Fury had to wait around all day. Their game was initially supposed to start around 2, pushed back just under an hour because of the rain this morning during the men's final. Before we're done today, Megan, we got to have a conversation about Boston Brute Squad. And obviously they win the U.S. Open. Fury didn't make the the semifinals at the U.S. Open, and they kind of trade places here in Pennsylvania in the second leg of the Triple Crown Tour. Are you at all worried about Boston Brute Squad heading into the fall?
I am very curious about what happened, simply because at the U.S. Open I said Boston Brute Squad has set the bar for performance in the women's division.
Chastain to the end zone for Pelletier. And Molly Brown not deterred by the conditions at all either. They're back within 4 at 10-6. So no turnovers this entire second half. That's 5 turnover-free offensive holds since the halftime break. Take a look at this last point. Brute Squad was dealing with some injuries this weekend. Leanne Hoffman didn't play in the Fury game, and they weren't that far away. They had a couple of close losses. Also a close win for their only win on Friday against Raleigh Phoenix, which is another team to talk about and discuss whether they actually belong in a potential semifinal conversation. But for the moment, Boston Brute Squad, they set the standard in August. They fumble away the opportunity in September. What does that mean for October?
You know, they have a smart coach in Ariel Jackson. They certainly have the leadership capacity to bring the team up from this kind of performance at one of the legs in the Triple Crown Tour. Certainly not extremely worried about Boston Brute Squad, but I do find it so curious that from what I saw, it looked like mistakes that should have been corrected earlier in the season were starting to kind of come to the surface now. But you know, I spoke with Leanne Hoffman yesterday afternoon, and she said, you know, we'd rather this happen now than at Nationals. This is the time to kind of learn these lessons and realize what you need to work on, as opposed to learning it in October.
Well, a year ago, we saw Brute Squad and Fury, the former national finalists from 2017. They met in the quarterfinals at the World Championships. And then Brute Squad fell to Revolution in the semis. And there's a hand block by Lisa Pitcaithley, canceling the swing from Howard. And Willa Cardenas almost getting tangled up there with Kirsten Johnson, former Molly Brown teammates. Abbott picks up to Manu. That was the first turnover of the second half. Molly Brown trying to endure through the conditions. Cardenas was looking for Eder, but she finds Pitcaithley, and she'll take it. Is this the beginning of a Molly Brown rally? Time will tell.
Molly brings it to within 2.
What a great block from Pitcaithley. And then pushes down to the end zone and keeps moving intelligently. You know, she's at the back of the stack, and when that break throw from Manu goes up and is out of the reach of Eder, she is there to finish that play.
Much easier to forget about an errant throw when one of your teammates, maybe not the one you were intending for, still catches it.
Oh, sure, yeah. You don't even learn a lesson there. Just like let that one go. That's what I meant to do.
Feel good. It's an assist. Count it.
Stacking my stats.
Denver within 3. That's their first break of the game. Fury had 4 breaks in the first half. Still only 1 turnover in the second half.
And we've said it already this broadcast. Molly Brown needs to learn to put together 2 good halves of Ultimate. They have come out looking so clean and confident this second half.
Drizzle continues to fall as Manu Cardenas launches the pull. I feel like you could say this every point, but pretty good line out there for Fury this time. Nazaroff, Helton, Griffith, Kaler, Desmond, Chang, and Sun. Nancy Sun launches deep again. Hanging up there, Griffith being pursued. Tuig is there, but she stumbles, and Griffith has the Fury score. Here comes the Sun.
Nice, Evan.
And another goal for Surge. You like this decision from Nancy?
I do. I think that, you know, there was maybe just a little too much air underneath that Frisbee. You notice it's starting to slow down, giving Tuig the opportunity to come up on Griffith. Griffith, a smart cutter, as smart as she is fast, is able to keep Tuig at her back. So even if Tuig had not fallen, I think she still would have managed to make that grab.
Three goals for Griffith. She's got so many important goals in her career, including, I believe, the one in the semis last year to eliminate Seattle Riot from the national championships. Getting a little dark over there. Hopefully the thunder and lightning stay away. Fury needs 4 more to close this out. Still about 27 minutes away from soft cap. Molly Brown, though, has other ideas, Megan. Here's Alika Johnston. Took off for a couple years to Senegal, where she served in the Peace Corps. Alika kind of disappeared from Ultimate, and good to see her back. And a deep shot at beauty to Chastain, who lands a yard shy of the goal line, and a quick dish to Ni Win to give Molly Brown the goal, brings them back within 3 at 11-8. Ni Win fits in really well with this Molly Brown offense, doesn't she?
She certainly does. She's quick, and she follows play as she does in this particular possession. She's also very aggressive at attacking the disc. So even if throws are a little tight or a little narrow, she's good at coming out with clutch grabs.
And it's good to see her healthy. You know, she was battling a lot of injuries with her University of Colorado days, and then playing with Molly Brown. First goal for Win. Chastain, who catches the huck, picks up another assist. We talked about Brute Squad. Obviously, we got these two teams. And you have Seattle Riot. I mean, they're right there in the mix again, like they always have been. But what needs to happen for Riot to peak at the right time in the fall? What do you want to see from them?
Gosh, that is a great question, simply because I feel like that's been such an issue for Riot for so many years. You know, it could be that they're not allowing themselves enough time in the early parts of the season to experiment with having different people on different lines, or giving people the opportunity to establish what role they might like to have on the team.
By the way, offside's called here. We'll re-pull.
So perhaps giving a little more space for growth and creativity earlier in the season would allow them to push back that peak part of their performance, which tends to come too often in the middle part of the season. That's usually when I feel like we have been seeing Riot at their best.
After the re-pull, here's Finney. Howard wide open at midfield, and a quick release to Lou. Here's Desmond. And she'll launch to the end zone, right on target. Kirsten Johnson has the score. Still just 1 turnover in this entire second half.
That is quite the accomplishment for the changing weather conditions. It was raining, now it's not. It wasn't as windy, now it's getting windier. And yet players are still managing to adjust in changing conditions, putting the appropriate shape on discs, just as Desmond did with that throw.
Timeout taken by Fury after this score. I think San Francisco's happy to have Claire Desmond back after she played in the mixed division for a year.
There's no doubt in my mind that they are ecstatic to have her back.
San Francisco Fury with 6 players on their current roster who have competed in the World Games. And you see the names, and obviously Maddie Sang has been a coach of the last couple of iterations that won gold in Cali, Colombia in 2013, and then again in Wrocław, Poland in 2017. There are other players on this Fury team that I think are potential future World Games competitors. I could see Bethany Kaler rising into that conversation if she continues to improve. You know, one player that Fury is playing without today is Amel Awadel Kareem, who's a Pennsylvania native, went to Penn State, grew up in State College. Her entire family's here supporting San Francisco Fury. He's another talented young stud. And it was really cool after the semifinals, Megan, you and I had kind of a periphery view of it, with Fury parents and family kind of gathered around and telling stories about what the players were like when they were kids.
I believe the kinds of stories they're looking for are embarrassing stories, which is even better.
Yeah, there were plenty of laughs. It was a cool scene. The O'Connor family was over there sharing some stories. The Awadel Kareem family as well. There will be not World Games tryouts in the next year, but there will be WUGC U.S. national team tryouts for the World Ultimate Gust Championships that are scheduled for next July in the Netherlands. Leeuwarden, for great things about the destination. And like 2016, when for the first time, they didn't just send the reigning champion from nationals with a few tweaks to the roster. They actually held teams, put together a great roster. That's going to be a crazy competitive tryout somewhere. I'm eager to find out when and where the tryouts are going to be, because like watching those tryouts is an event upon itself. Now the wind has picked up again.
You mentioned those tryouts, Evan. It is so fun to think about who you would put on a dream team. And those tryouts are like those oft talked about conversations coming to life.
Rain coming down more intensely, and Chastain shot to the end zone, caught by a minor, impervious to the conditions. Molly Brown back within 3 at 12-9. Still 20 plus minutes away from soft cap. Look at the elements. Tough grab in traffic with one hand by Liza Minor. And a pretty impressive left-footed punt spike here in the conditions too. She got all that plastic. A lot of talk about whether Carly Lloyd could kick for an NFL team. I'm impressed with Liza Minor's kicking skills. Many of the fans who have stuck around have sought shelter. Players out there just wearing it. It's a warm day, so the rain probably doesn't feel too bad. Although that's easy for me to say. Ian, how's the rain feel?
Evan, the rain has definitely picked up in intensity in the last couple minutes here during that 0 point for Molly Brown. It's not quite, it's definitely more intense than the drizzle we had earlier on. It's also not as intense as a torrential downpour But we see Molly Brown trying to capitalize on these conditions by rolling the pull out of bounds to set a zone.
Pitcaithley sets the mark on Finney, who turns it over, looking for Rudin through the tight space.
Applegate to pick up.
Molly Brown can get within 2 if they can work it all the way downfield here.
Philly's favorite, Alicia Dixon.
That throw away from Finney, just the second turn in the second half, and that disc caught by Pitcaithley. The quick dish for the score. Liz Normer makes it 12-10. Here comes Molly Brown again, as we've seen them do so many times in the past.
Pitcaithley with the assist. That is the kind of throw that Molly Brown is baiting with that trap mark coming off of the pull. Pitcaithley had the assist, but it's this throw from Dixon that makes all things possible.
And that torrential downpour that Ian was baiting by saying that it was a light rain, maybe a more substantial rain. Ian, does it feel torrential now?
Yeah, I was just asking one of the cameraman colleagues down here if he thought there was any hail that was hitting. And as these raindrops pelt my back, I have to say that even though I haven't seen any hail bouncing on the ground, it certainly feels like it right now.
So you want to be a sideline reporter, Ian. You wanted to be a sideline reporter.
Whatever it takes, right, Evan?
I think the players are having fun and enjoying this. Joe Durst doesn't seem to care as he jogs down the sideline. And here comes another sideline pull, and Durst is there to slow the disc down. And the rain lightens up just in time for Finney to pick it up. Now she's wearing gloves, and she breaks the mark beautifully. Over to Johnson. Finney shoots it, and that disc dove on her. Tough throw with the wind whistling as it is. It is a spiraling wind right now. Going to make any throw in any direction difficult. And Pitcaithley calls a timeout. Stall count was getting pretty high. Beg your pardon. We got a stoppage, no timeout. Reset to Cardenas. Here's Chastain. Pitcaithley ripping the backhand hook. Chelsea Tuig unable to make the catch. She staggered right when she needed to extend. Aggie Rudin up the line, past the bidding Pitcaithley, and then Howard's throw sails over Kaler to Chastain, who picks it off. Molly Brown's deep shot. Oh, it was deed and caught anyway. Johnson tipped it. Tuig hung on. Molly Brown trying to get back within 1 as a couple Fury players collide in the midst of this downpour here in Pennsylvania.
I think finally enough elements have been thrown at these teams to make an impact in the play.
Watch this. That was the first one that she could not grab, and now here, unbelievable. And I guess that's why they say catch your D's. And then the collision between a couple of Fury players. Ooh. Nazaroff and Payne are in there. Pitcaithley with the disc, and that disc fumbled away by Claire Chastain. That would have brought it within 1. Not sure I've ever seen Ultimate Megan played in this type of downpour. It is monsoon-like here in Fort Washington, PA. Makes every throw more difficult, and yet Finney still rips a flick about 50 yards downfield for Maggie Rudin. Howard to Payne right through the breadbasket. And this is borderline comedy, but a timeout is called by Molly Brown. I guess the rules say with no thunder and no lightning, we play on. As long as our equipment can handle it. We'll go down to Ian for an update, assuming his microphone isn't too wet in just a moment. Let's watch this sequence, though. The drop in the end zone for Molly Brown.
And the disc just slips right through Opie Payne's hands.
I mean, everybody is soaked right now. Megan, you and I have some slight cover, but the spiraling rain has hit us a bunch. Ian, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Evan. I have to say, we've seen just about everything in this game. We've seen the wind die down significantly and come to a still calm. We've seen bright, shining, sunshine skies. And now, as you can see, we're in the middle of a torrential downpour. One thing we have noticed is that the wind, as it's been a presence in this game, has consistently blown this way, towards this end zone. So Carolyn Finney's 50-yard upwind, up-rain huck was that much more impressive on the last possession.
And on the restart, Cardenas unable to keep the float alive for Chastain. Man, this is nuts. This is absolutely bonkers right now. It's hard to imagine what it's like for these players playing. Chastain just rips it deep. Seeing umbrellas get turned over by the wind. Our equipment is being as quickly as it can being covered by towels just to preserve its effectiveness. This is more of a punt than anything right there, just to not give Fury a short field. Meanwhile, it's a 2-goal game. Still 11 minutes away from soft cap, which is a +1 soft cap with the alteration of rules because of the weather earlier today. Megan, you ever seen anything like this?
Yeah, I'm honestly trying to remember. I know I've played in some terrible weather in college. Played through quite a bit of rain, but I don't think rain quite as bad as today.
Kaler to Howard. This is Lou. Pretty good hands, tight throws. Maggie Rudin resets. Hope someone's taking a photo of our situation here in the booth right now, because it is something different. Can the goal line stand from Molly Brown? Half of the field on that shot to Cardenas. Now shooting it, Eder. Can she track this down? She had it and lost it. Oh, goodness.
Such a perfect put that even with a little less rain, she would be able to grab.
This is just absolutely nuts right now.
I mean, she was going for a pancake catch, which is supposed to be the safest catch, but you saw her top hand just slide across the Frisbee.
So, Megan, you and I are literally standing in standing water in our quote-unquote press box.
We are.
Now we're watching the game off the monitor because a tarp has been draped, blocking our field of vision. Meanwhile, I think we still have it pretty good compared to the players. And Ian Toner down on the sideline. Chastain Scuba caught, but still a yard shy of the goal line. Will this be the sequence that leads to Molly Brown getting within one? It will. Cardenas to Chastain. Mercy. Molly Brown, after trailing by 5 at the half, enduring the conditions and their championship opponent to make it a game down the stretch. This was a little different than the marathon points we saw in the second half in the men's final and the mixed final.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's about how well you can pull the Frisbee into your body. Because as we saw from Eater earlier, even pancake catches are not necessarily the safest grab in this weather. I think Eater's dropping down in appreciation that that point ended.
The jerseys don't look dry. Second assist for Cardenas. There were 11 turnovers in that point, and most of them Mother Nature responsible for. Ian Toner, care to comment?
Really interesting. So many of these elite teams talk about the importance of mental toughness and being able to execute and get reps in any condition. We don't care if we win the tournament so long as we have a good experience getting tested. Can you think of a better test than playing against a semis or national championship caliber team in these conditions, Evan and Megan?
Well, you never know what to expect. Molly Brown for the tie. Incomplete. How about the observers, too? Still doing their job through the elements. Great catch made by Abbott. Gave her teammate a chance in the end zone, but unable to haul it in. Narmer. At the moment, we're still playing a 15. Tough grab made there. Johnson, her flick a little lower than she intended. And uh-oh, this is not good. Kayla Helton moves over to check on Claire Desmond. Desmond makes this catch. Landed on both of her knees and grabbed that left knee immediately. Never want to see that. Desmond has been such a superstar in this sport for so many years, representing the United States on World Games teams a couple of times. And we just got the lightning siren. Desmond injured, lightning in the area, and at least 30 minutes now separate us from the finish line, as we will take a 30-minute break before we resume. We're going to remember the 2019 Pro Championships for a bunch of reasons this monsoon at the top of the list.
For the players as well, this is certainly a game that's going to stand out in their memory in a way that a lot of games don't, simply because you play so many games at so many tournaments, they can tend to blend together. But this game, outstanding for its own reasons.
So, it's a little after 4 o'clock. We got a 30-minute delay. We'll give you an update in 30 minutes or less. Fury leads 12-11 here in Philly. The USA Ultimate Pro Championships are presented by the Ultimate History Book, illuminating the legendary stories, moments, and photos from the sport of Ultimate over the past 50 years. Learn more at ultimatehistorybook.com. discraft.com. And by Discraft, home of the UltraStar, the official disc of USA Ultimate. Now featuring an updated website to make ordering custom discs easier than ever. Visit discraft.com for all your custom disc needs. We welcome everyone back to Fort Washington, PA, where the women's final has been called early. San Francisco Fury survives the comeback bid of Denver Molly Brown. Fury led 8-3 at the half. Molly Brown gets within one, and the game ends because of the lightning delay. Players have flights to catch. Fury wins the women's division at the Pro Championships. Megan Tormey, a wild scene. Your final thoughts on this game and on this weekend?
You know, I would say that Molly Brown can walk away feeling good about that comeback effort, but I think Molly has proved to themselves they have what it takes to come back in tough deficits. Now they need to come forward and figure out how they're going to put that kind of effort on the field at the outset. This would have been a completely different game if Molly Brown had started in the first half playing like they did in the second half.
They finished strong. They just need to avoid the slow start. So Fury 12-11 over Molly Brown 7.5 weeks from now. Imagine we'll see these two teams again in an important game in San Diego. Megan, we'll see you there.
Looking forward to it already.
55 days from now, we'll decide the 2019 national champions. Good luck to every team and player getting ready for sectionals, regionals, and nationals. Looking forward to San Diego, but for now we say so long from rainy Fort Washington, PA. For Megan Tormey and Ian Toner, Evan Lepler bidding you adieu. Fury wins it over Molly Brown by 1. We'll see everyone in San Diego.